Je suis donc très heureuse de partager ce panel avec ces intervenantes et nous allons commencer par Madame l'eurodéputée Maria Noichl, qui est rapporteure de la résolution du Parlement européen sur la prostitution dans l'UE, son impact transfrontalier et sur l'égalité femmes-hommes. C'est une eurodéputée allemande du parti du groupe SD, donc les sociodémocrates, qui va nous présenter donc, le contenu de la résolution Noichl et nous parler un peu du contexte allemand, des résultats de la législation qui a réglementé la prostitution en Allemagne et des différentes tendances actuelles concernant la prostitution en ligne dans le pays. Merci.
Thank you so much. I think we have to clap the hand. The name is Noichl report, the name of the paper, but I think it should be the name Noichl and Hima report. She was always in my office, and we do it together. And I think normally the name, your name should be on the paper as well. Thank you. My name is Maria Noichl. I'm from Germany, and yes, I was the rapporteur about the report, the situation for prostitution in the different member states on the one side, and what could be a good plan for Europe. And I think how it's possible to do this report, how it's possible to bring this report on a desk. The first step was for me to say, to work that these issues is the high priority in the SD, in my political party. I think many women understand not the system. The system is first you have to fight in your own political party. Then you have to fight with the other political parties. I do it 2 years before. I always say, we need a paper for prostitution. Yes, Maria, but we need a paper for COVID. We need a paper for this. We need a paper for that. It is always so are many ideas on the table, and the first step is to make the paper for prostitution as topic number 1. This is important. If you have, it was possible for me to do it in my own political group. Yes, it was not so hard. I was the coordinator, and for the coordinator, it's normally more possible to do this. Then we bring it to bring the idea in the FAM committee, and the FAM committee say, okay, the Greens have these ideas, the Black one have these ideas, the Liberals have these ideas, and the SD have these ideas. Okay, we do this. We do all the different reports, and so was the situation that I get my own report. My idea, I get this own report in my hand. Yes, what is the situation? We have in the report from Marie Hannibal. She was a social democrat from Great Britain. 2014, there was one report from Marie Hannibal, and this in Hannibal report was the first sentence that prostitution is violence against women. And this was, I think, I'm Mary, the same as Mary Hannibal, yes, it was great. And then I said, we are thinking we have to do this now, and we need a position of the European Parliament. This position is not, or this paper, this INI report, is not a binding paper. This paper is only a paper to show the different situation in the member state and to say what is the idea of the European Parliament. And I think this is a good basic to have a paper for the idea of the European Parliament. Yes. What was the most problem, I think, from my side? The most problem was the extremely lobby from the sex workers side. And this lobby have, I would say 5 points. They always fight. First, it is not allowed to say prostitution is violence against women. They don't like this wording in one sentence. Prostitution and violence against women. And they do everything against this wording. The next point was, I heard it before, that they don't like the wording prostitution. They always like to say sex workers. We do this in the report on one place. Only on one place in the report is the wording sex workers as Selbstbezeichnung, the women who say themselves. Then we say it's okay. It's her own wording, but we never would say sex workers. This was the next. the sex worker lobby would like to have always the wording forced prostitution. Then they can split and can say there is the good one and there is the bad one, prostitution. This was always, yeah, we have to go forced prostitution. No, I say prostitution is prostitution. Full stop. And this was one point. The next point was the mix always prostitution with migration. And this is very hard. We put the issues migration out of the report. If we had put it in, then we oh God, how is my English? Then we lost. Then we would lost. Then, sorry, yes. Then I think there is one of the biggest problem in Germany as well. I think the problem is if you say these are all victims, what is then the status of this woman? If you say no, these are workers, sex workers, then you can say goodbye, go back in your land, in your country. But if you say we say prostitution is a kind of violence against women, then these are all victims. Then is the idea there could be a possibility to be in the member states, and this was not acceptable. Was not possible to us. We kicked the whole issues migration out of the report. And the third point is the extremely group of the sex workers always fight for my body, my right. They put this wording from the abortion issues to the prostitution issues and say it is my body and it is my right to sell my body. And if you are against, then you are no feminist. And this is the idea in Germany as well. Yes, you are no feminist if you say it is not allowed. Okay, what is now in the report? But before, how was the situation with the political parties? We have a strong coalition with the EPP, the European, the Conservatives, and the SND, and apart from the lefts. But the Greens group was out there, always fight for the sex workers. It was not to understand from the liberals. They were split half and half, but it was possible. There are two the two big groups, the EPP and the SND, fight together. What is in the report? In the report is women or people in prostitution should never be criminalized. This is always the first. Against stigmatization, against discrimination, for access to health service, and so on, for socioeconomic help, and the women's safety must be in the focus. This is one point. The second point is we would like to stop demand. To have less demand. This is clear. How can you do it? You can, for example, it's forbidden to make advertising. Yes, this could be one point. But the last point is, the biggest point is, you criminalized the man who would like to buy. And this is in this paper. And we make clear, and at the same time it was the book from your side, Last Girls First. We make clear in this report there's always the last women in a society are always the first women in prostitution. And in Europe we have countries who give more money and countries who get more money from Europe, and we have countries who give the woman and countries who get the woman. For example, Romania give the woman for the prostitution, Germany get the woman for prostitution. This, to understand, it's a Europe problem. It's not a German problem. In Berlin, there are not German women on the street. There are not German women with a passport on the street. No, there are women from Romania, and in Romania, the last one, for example, Sinti or Roma woman. You see it exactly, and this is the situation. It's a Europe problem that there are states who give the woman and other states who take the woman, and after the work 5 years later, they spread them out. And I think this is the European part. And then we have a clear position that the normal prostitution, the good prostitution, built a motorway for the forced prostitution. There is a link between the normal prostitution and the so-called forced prostitution. This was clear. It's a shame. We have to do something against. So I think in the report there are many points against poverty, many points for lack of alternatives for the woman, and so on. I think this is you think you know the points. But your question was, and then I would like to stop. The question was, how is the situation now in Germany? Yes, in Germany we have more than, I would say, 500,000 people in prostitution, but we have only 30,000 registered. And only this 30,000 registered people, women, are in a situation, have a healthcare situation. All other are without a legal status, not normally without the possibility, for example, to go in a shelter house, without the possibility to get money from the state if they would like to exit, and so on. This is really a shame. We have the situation that is for the man everything absolutely normal, but it's never normal for the women. It's never normal, and we saw this in the COVID time. We saw this in the COVID time that it was the only point. It is not necessary to sign, yes, I was here in the prostitution. In the restaurant, you have to sign lists, yes, I was here, you know, the situation in COVID. But it was clear, no, it's not possible. If you're a man, you would never sign and would give your name. And this we saw in Germany. What could be the next step in Germany? I hope we learn. Now we have evolution time. In this year we get the evolution for the rules for the sex workers or prostitution rules in Germany. We have now evaluation, and this evaluation we could see that the system, the liberal system in Germany, doesn't work. It doesn't work. The system, the idea of the system is bring the women out of the dark situation, bring it in a white situation, and bring it in a normal work situation, sex workers as a normal work. But we see it is not possible. And we see the man earn money, the woman, it's a crazy situation. And we see for the young people in Germany, a young man with 16 years old say, I only wait 2 years, then I will buy. And this is a shame. Thank you so much.